Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live boat display, mostly involving tanks. As you might have noticed, we were going to have a very small pond, but we haven't got a very small pond. So the landing craft, which are over under the Union flag, are our contribution to the floating part of the display. This is a couple of World War II vintage. One is a motorised landing craft, which is the smaller one, and the bigger one is what's called a tank landing craft, which could accommodate a larger number of tanks. This is attached to our Mulberry Harbour, which is actually a floating harbour. So when we're actually at events where there's water, the two light grey bits are actually afloat, while the jetty gun emplacement with commanding views of the main street. Tank-to-tank skirmishes ensue. Gun emplacement destroyed, the Allied tanks are able to advance into the village square. The final remaining Tigers hopelessly attempt to defend the radar station. The crew of the Churchill disembark and place demolition charges on the radar station and prepare with fingers crossed to knock it out. We'll consider that mission successful. With the radar station out of action and the village liberated, the crews are able to move on to their next mission. I think we'll get our operators to form up in a couple of lines wherever they choose is best. To say their thank yous to everyone that's watched the display. With our tanks on parade, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching today's display by the Portsmouth display team. Show your appreciation to the operators. Thank you very much for watching. Round of applause is much appreciated in this rather warm operating area that we have here today. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day here at the Bollington Southwest Model Show. And once again, thank you for watching. In about 10 or 15 minutes or so, we'll have the compound open again. Come in and see some of the other models that we've got on display.
Okay, back in. Yeah.
You will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained.
Buttons at the top for fire. It'll probably kill me, but it's fine.
Press the top.
Thanks. Hear it. There you go.
So did the tanks shoot and blow up the village? Was it the tanks or the electric wires?